Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes? It's Matt here, and as you've probably seen from the main channel, Assist Me is coming back with Smash Brothers, and of course our debut episode features none other than the heroic icon Link himself. And while we're on the subject of Link, I'd like to take some time to talk about the hero himself and his role in the upcoming game and future series in general. This discussion, of course, was brought up at E3 this year when the trailer for the new Zelda game featured a mysteriously non-green wearing Link who looked a little bit effeminate. Now this raised a big question of whether or not Link was a girl, or Link could be a girl, or whether Link even should be a girl. And today I'd like to tackle this subject head on and ask the big question of, does Link's gender really matter? Now right off the bat, I want to just say my answer to this is no. Link's gender really does not matter, and I think I have three pretty good reasons why I believe this. Let's go into the mechanics and designs of the game. First off, let's look at the name Link. The name of Link, of course, is meant to be a link to the player. This was back in the early days of the NES, and before we got into games that had full-on customization options and whatnot, this was sort of Nintendo's attempt to sort of make a character that they felt could connect to the player, even though it wasn't anything crazy like custom design, custom gender, custom anything. Now getting back to the whole gender issue here, it's 2014, and let's be honest here, The Legend of Zelda has a huge fan following, and a lot of that fandom is actually female. I would wager at least half of the Zelda fans are actually female, and quite frankly, to continue down this pathway and road of saying, well, we want Link to be a link to the player playing the game, but only if that player is a male. That's a little short-sighted, and really just denying half of the fandom's option to be more connected to this player whose very name means connection feels a little bit sexist and backwards in this day and age. Nintendo really wants to promote itself as an all-ages, all-encompassing company that appeals to males and females and anyone of any age. That really they need to bite the bullet here and just say, you know what, if we're going to have a character who's supposed to be a connection to the person holding the controller, we should be a little bit more open-minded and progressive, and we should allow people to have the option to be a male or female Link. It's not really asking for the moon here. Now let's look at the actual character of Link, and he's not really actually had much of one over the years. Now they've slowly been giving him more and more character to latch onto in the more recent games, of course, but fact remains, Link is a silent protagonist. He's a blank slate. I mean, the series even dabbles in some light dialogue trees that really don't go anywhere anyways. So the point I'm making here is he's kind of already an open to interpretation character. Now you could say that, oh, but what about his romances and all that? Now let's be honest here. Link's romances are superficial at best. Even some of the biggest games in the series, such as Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Link to the Past, Link doesn't really ever have any romantic ties in those games, and certainly not with Zelda. Really, go back and look at them. There's really nothing hinting at any sort of romance between Link and Zelda. That's mostly been built up by the fans over the years. Now granted, some of the more recent entries, something more like Minish Cap and Skyward Sword, you could argue maybe had a more romantically inclined Link, but they really could still be a female character and it wouldn't really change anything. It's so ambiguous, it's so non-existent that the romance sideline is just not even worth bringing up hardly in this argument. The biggest romance Link ever had was in Link's Awakening, and that was a long time ago. Fact of the matter is that Link doesn't really necessarily have anything that clearly defines him as a male character. And really, there's no good excuse in this day and age to say a female warrior type that looks like Link couldn't do the same things Link does. And to further my point on this, let's look at some other big franchises in gaming right now. You have Mass Effect and Saints Row, just to name a couple, and both of these games offer non-silent speaking protagonists that give you the option of male or female. Saints Row even goes further and gives you multiple different voice actors for male and females. And the story doesn't actually change in those games. Hey, you know what? Shepard's a girl, or guess what? The boss is a girl in Saints Row. They work fine. There's nothing in those games to say that, oh, this would only work with a male character. There's really nothing I see at this point saying that Nintendo has to keep on with Link as being a male character. He's clearly a person who appeals to a lot of different demographics, and I think it would only just go further towards widening his appeal if you have the option of being a male Link or female Link. Now my third and last point goes into the canon of the game. All that non-essential gooey bullshit which drives fandom wild. Now, I don't like to get into these kind of arguments much, but I will make an exception for my beloved Zelda franchise. Throughout the Zelda timeline, there have been roughly 11 different Links or so. So to sit there and to say that, well, Link's an iconic character who we can't break tradition from is bullshit on its face. Mario is Mario, but Link is not the same Link. Link is a hero who is constantly reincarnated throughout different eras and split timelines throughout the chronology of the series. And to sit there and to say, well, Link could never reincarnate as a woman, that's just preposterous. No, the only thing stupid and preposterous is those who would argue that point. There's nothing really confirming this in the game's canon storyline anyways, although it usually traditionally just ends up being a boy. For instance, in Wind Waker, it was the boys who were garbed in the hero's clothing. But does this really actually mean it always has to be? I don't even buy the idea that Link's an iconic character and you can't fuck with him. You can't touch his look or design. That's bullshit. Let's look at the most recent Zelda games, for example. You have games like Wind Waker HD and Skyward Sword, and going back a little further, you have Twilight Princess. These are radically different looking characters. They all are Link, they're identifiable as Link, but they're no more radical of a change than if there was just a female version of Link in any one of those games. Toon Link and regular Link don't look a fucking thing alike. They're completely different art styles, yet they still work. People still identify it as Link, as Zelda games, so I don't feel that there's any really good excuse to say, well, he has to be a male. He has to be in these clothing. He has to be in green tunic. Hell, the newest Zelda trailer doesn't have him in any green tunic of any kind or sort. Yet we still know that's Link, even if he does look suspiciously female. And is that really such a bad thing? How neat and interesting would it be if, per se, the new Zelda game Link was a female, or had the option to be male or female, but hey, he was actually this time from the Gerudo. I mean, he is wearing very Gerudo-ish looking armbands in the trailer, but maybe this time he's not Hylian, but maybe from one of the different outlying races. Maybe this time the hero comes from somewhere unexpected, or the tables have turned. It doesn't necessarily mean the whole game has to change, it's just a neat twist. Again, it's not going to break the design, the mechanics, the flow of a Zelda game if it's a male or female running around. It only simply gives more options and is more inclusive to more people. So I don't really buy the argument of tradition and we have to stick to it. Tradition is a bullshit excuse for anything. There's a lot of awful traditions throughout the history of the world, and you know what? Sometimes it's good to just get rid of them, let them go, forget about them, or move on, change, progress. That's why it's called being progressive. Let's include everyone in the new Zelda game. I'm not saying Link has to be female. I'm saying the option should be there. As simple as it is to name your character or name your horse, it should be as simple to say, are you a boy or a girl? Nintendo's done this themselves with other games, and it's time to just make the logical step forward and say, you know what, we've got a silent protagonist whose name is simply there to be a connection to the player, and you can name them whatever you want. Let's look at the fandom as a whole and say, you know what, let's include everyone. I mean, this is Nintendo we're talking about, not Ubisoft. I think they know how to model a female character. In conclusion, I feel that Link's gender really does not matter. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you later on the channel. Later, dudes!